Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Call this the intro, whatever you want to call it. This is a precursor to what this podcast will become. It's just me, the host Falcon, creator of Helos, yada yada yada. I wanted to do this podcast for a few reasons, but to get into it, essentially, at the core of it, I feel like Sydney's on the verge of a cultural boom. If you look at London in early 2010, so 2010, 2013, look at New York, LA back in the 90s, they had like these cultural booms, and I sense Sydney's on the way up, and prime examples of that is like Kid Leroy and whatnot, and then you look at like Penrith Panthers and stuff like that, and 1-4 and all these other like Lissy and all these artists, and I listen to these artists, go to find them, go to find more information on these people, and there's not that much. The NRL's starting to do it with like Bloke in a Bar and whatnot, or YKTR. But in terms of music, I haven't really found a consistent uploader that's talking about it, listening to them, and listening to the people that make up the culture as well. Not defined by just music. There'll be plenty of more other people in here, filmmakers, bomber, sneaker customizer, people like them that truly make up like the whole scene of clothing, sport, music, essentially. Now, who am I? I'm Falcon. I'm 22. Come from the beautiful town of Wimerley, and the reason I started Helos back in the day when I was 16, so it's been going for 5.5 years now, and I came to a point where I was like, I need to tell stories. I need to let people tell their stories. Last year I started meeting people, most notably like CG Fez, Bomber, Nick F Films, Kyle from Seta, Young Six. Got in contact with Kahook X, who's now literally like number one artist in Australia at the moment. Like, he's on the playlist, he's on the cover of them. I got in contact with him well before that all happened. And I wish I had started this earlier, because I want to give people the opportunity to learn more about the people they follow and, purchase from, essentially. So, yeah, the podcast, Helos and Homies, it's going to go, sometimes it'll be me and my boys, just talking shit, telling stories. Other times it's going to be, artists and them telling their stories and stuff you most probably don't know about them or haven't heard about them. From just the artists I've met, there's a lot more to these people than you'd ever expect. Like, there's a lot more beyond the music. So, yeah, and a lot more beyond whatever they do that puts them in a public limelight, essentially. And I was like, yeah, I got to give them a platform to tell this. I'll be at different studios. If you're watching on YouTube, this is what will be used as one of them, possibly. And then I've got other ones that I'll be using. So locations will vary until I get my own one. But until then, we'll be at different locations almost every time. Nonetheless, I put out on Instagram a few days ago, questionnaire. I was like, all right, let's get questions in so people understand what like Helos is about. So, from first, got Talus, T-Money, got a lot of love here, brother. How did I come up with a business name? So, Helos comes from the word telos. So I used to do studies of religion. I went to a Catholic school, and we did studies of religion. And in ancient Greece, like telos meant the ultimate aim or purpose. I was like, that word's sick. I was like, gonna chuck a H on it because my name's Harrison. And then the N code is the boys, because if anyone knows about Helos, or anyone that like knows me knows about Helos, like the boys are a pretty incremental part of everything that happens. Like they help me out with photo shoots, they help me out, they model, they like help me out pack orders, they help me out do all of that. So I was like, yeah, the N code is gonna stick. Business wise, it's most likely just be Helos, but for me, till the rest of the time, it'll be N code. If this blows up, if it doesn't, no matter what. Helos and Co. The boys been an incremental part of just any small successes I've had with this brand. And yeah. Second question. Top 3 artists and backstory of how I started Helos. That's a good question. First of all, top 3 artists is hard. I'm going to say this, and like I said before, if you know me, it's Dave. Dave's number one. I got a lot of love for Dave, meaning back 2018. I got a story I will tell on this podcast about that, which is pretty sick. Top 3 artists, I'm going to go Dave, personally Jay-Z, and then you could honestly, I'd chuck in Potter Paper or Kendrick, but obviously you got Drizzy, you got J. Cole, A$AP Rocky, all these different artists. That's just personal to me. Joey Badass, I'm a huge fan of as well, but to be honest, I'm going to go Dave, Jay-Z, Potter Paper. That's just my 3. Don't hate me for it. Mizzle Mac gets an honourable shout as well. He's the king of drills. Anything you hear now, that's Mizzle Mac inspired, anything where it started. So I've got a lot of love and respect for Mizzle Mac. And the backstory of how Helos started. So when I was like 15, 16, one of my best mates, Vlasic, he wanted to start a brand, and he was at the boxing gym, and some guy came up to me and was like talking about how he had slick back hair. He's like, hey, I'm going to start a brand called Slickback. Anyway, I got into the conversation, ended up being like, oh, I'll come into it with you. Like, I was heaps keen on doing it. I was working at Coles, and I was working big hours as well for like 15, 16-year-old. So I was like, yeah, let's start this. Anyway, as it goes on, Vlasic eventually like kind of pulled out, and as to where Vlasic is now, he's in the army, he's been serving for ages, and he does so well for himself, very proud of him. And I was like, I stood there, I was like, fuck, I could do this myself, or like I could just not do it. And I was like, fuck, I'm going to do it at like 16. I got nothing to lose, man. Like, I may as well try. And yeah, here I am 5 years later, bit of money lost, bit of money made, like just enjoying the ride. People I've met, yeah, the experiences I've had through the brand, places I've been, like just anywhere in Sydney in terms of like cooler spots, studios, all that stuff, all because of Helos. So I can't complain. But it's about time, like, hit a moment over the past few months where I was like, fuck, you need to level up here. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to rip and tear, and I'm going to see how far I can take this thing. And I think podcasts and vlogs are like two of the biggest things, and use clothing merely as the vehicle to fund like sick content, essentially. More questions. So, what inspired you to start up? I just wanted to have my own business. Where I was 16, I was like, I just want to have my own business. And moving forward in this world, I will have more businesses. Like, whether it be, most probably not another brand or anything like that. I want to eventually get into like a media agency or a music management. A management label is like one of my number one goals in life. But if not, I'll move into other things as well. Whatever like I think there's a market for, and I can plug the hole in that market, I'll be moving into. So yeah, just what inspired me to start about. I just love business. I want to be a part of business. I want to own a business. I want to be the face of a business for some businesses, and I just want to make sure that like I'm doing my best. And the idea of working for someone, it's not really like it's not really my thing. I know a few people, like for those who it is, good on you, because it's a lot less stressful, and there's a lot more happiness in not owning one. But I was just like, yeah, I need to own one, and that's it. And that was from 16. Now I'm 22. I want to have another 2 or 3 by the age of 25, so got a lot of work ahead. Joel, very creative young man, funny as hell as well. Has the supply been affected by COVID? Personally, I don't do massive numbers. Like, I do over 100 on each drop, but like there's brands in Sydney that are doing over thousands, and I know from what I saw that it had been affected when it first hit in 2020. Yeah, so when it first hit, they got affected, but last year it wasn't really affected. I think people at the start of 2020 like kind of panicked, but then once they realised like they can work from home, people could still go to work. A lot of online businesses went up, but the supply in terms of like from China hasn't really been affected. Like, it still all comes in and whatnot. I have noticed when I do source from over there, the customs has taken like a bit longer than what it was before it was happening. That's the only thing I've really noticed on my end, but besides that, like, it's not really an issue. Jack Murphy, love your bread. If you couldn't be doing this, what do you see yourself doing? Football. This is the setup of OZSIDE football. I'm not saying I'd be a footballer. I want to go into management, or I want to be a play manager, or just work in media and football in Europe. Like, that would be unreal. If this all went to shit, I'd be on the first plane over to Europe, working on a farm, whatever I got to do, just to make sure I could work in football. Yeah, if I couldn't be doing Helos, that's what I'd be doing. But essentially, that's why I started OZSIDE football with Jaden, who's behind the camera right now, and this is his studio, beautiful studio. I was like, yeah, if I can't do that, I'm going to start this as well at the same time, put it under a Helos Media umbrella, which is what this is under, and then hopefully we can move that forward into like a position where we can interview footballers, we have our own media outlet, we can cover football stories. I watched Copper 90 growing up, and Copper 90 is like top of the range, so yeah, that's what I'd like to be doing. But if all goes to shit, I might probably just be a farmer. That's my idea. Jamie Pern, not a question, but love your work, big dog. Love you too, Jamie. Love your work. That's about it. There's a few more questions, but I've lost them because they got lost in the feed. But yeah, for this podcast, it's just kind of like, in terms of where I want to go and what I want to have, you'll find that out quickly. We're going to have some big guests in the first few. Also going to do podcasts with the boys I've grown up with, stuff like that. A fair few stories to tell, being 22 and, young men. And one more question was why I'm doing it. Why I'm doing it. Kind of covered it at the start, but like I'll say it again. There's a cultural boom happening right now. Kid Leroy's at the front of it. If you can't see it, I'm telling you about it now. Kid Leroy's at the front of it, and then you have like 1-4, and you have Lissy, and then you have like obviously like other artists in other industries as well. DJs especially. Flume is at the peak, right? I feel like Sydney and Melbourne are on this verge of like a cultural peak. and they'll soon get international attention. All my part I want to be in that is to make sure those people that when they go to levels of fame and popularity, that there's people can go and find more about them via a podcast or something like that, if that makes sense. I feel like it's critical. Every time I found an artist from the UK, obviously if you find them too early, you're not going to find too much of them. But every time I found an artist that has a bit of a catalogue, I've always found interviews, I've always found podcasts with them. But when it comes to Australia, you find a few and then you look on the podcast and it's not consistent. That's my goal here. One every week for as long as it needs to be, maybe even two. We'll see how it goes. But that's why I'm doing it, man. People need I want Sydney, I want Melbourne, I want Australia as a whole to be put on a map. And at the moment, we have the capabilities to do so. It's a matter of the media doing it. And that's why like YKTR and Bloke in a Bar are so critical at the moment, because they're Bloke in a Bar is putting rugby league on an international scale. YKTR is covering rugby league like it's never been covered before. So I've got a lot of love for them too. And they to be honest, they inspired me completely. Like I've followed, if you ever see this, Isaac John from YKTR. And if you don't follow them yet, I suggest you follow them on at least podcasting platforms. Sick clothes as well. But like I've watched him from being by himself in a bedroom to a massive studio with like 7 or 8 employees, podcasts everywhere. Like that's why I want to do it. So yeah, that's why I'm doing it. Not much more to it, but hopefully it's good enough reason for you to listen. What to expect? Lots of different people, lots of different stories, and Western Sydney to come to a forefront. I hope to get a few UFC fighters on, rugby league players, AFL, musicians, producers, people working in the fashion industry that are high up, filmmakers, and just people that have got stories to tell, really. That's why I want to get that. That's what you should expect, and that's why I'm doing it. And yeah, if you've listened to this one, thank you very much. This is merely the intro. This is merely the warm-up, as you should say. This is the pre-game stretch. Next podcast, we'll be fully into it. We'll have guests. And like I said, expect a few with the boys, but expect a lot with people from Western Sydney and Sydney especially, until I grow a bit more. And then from there, we'll see what happens. But if you're listening to this or watching it, I appreciate it a lot. Follow, like, subscribe, comment that I'm an idiot. Do whatever you got to do. And yeah, stay lovely. Thank you.